He's hilarious, but he's serious.
Thank you, sweetheart. Ladies and gentlemen, my name's Rickey Cole, and with your help, I'll be your next Commissioner of Agriculture and Commerce. My good friend Jamie Frank stole my line a while ago, but today, ladies and gentlemen, I can do better than any of these candidates. They've all given you quite a few reasons why you ought to vote for them, but I got them all beat. I've got more than 55 million reasons why you ought to vote for me. The current Commissioner of Agriculture, and I won't mention his name because half the people in Mississippi don't even know him anyway, but the current Commissioner of Agriculture wasted 55 million of your tax dollars on a failed beef plant in North Mississippi. They call it a cull cow plant. Let me tell y'all what they really had the bright idea to do. They thought Mississippi cattlemen would get rich if we went into the potted meat business. Well, Mississippi State University told them that it wouldn't work. They pushed it through anyway. And Mr. Commissioner, I won't mention his name, has said over and over and over again since then, well, it was the legislature's fault. I want you to look at that ballot in November, and I want you to count the different offices that has the word agriculture in the title. There's not a state representative for agriculture. There's not a state senator for agriculture. There's not a lieutenant governor for agriculture. There's just one elected official in this whole state who's responsible for agriculture. And he's the one that led the battle that wasted 55 million of your dollars. The blame rests with him, and the buck stops right over yonder at that office across the hill. And don't you believe otherwise. I'm proud to be endorsed by the Mississippi AFL-CIO. The first speech I gave was at a rally for state employees that Brenda had over at the Capitol, and I told them then, and I'll repeat it here today, the first day I'm in office, I'm going to encourage every employee of my office to join the State Employees Union. I can't make them, but I can sure ask them with a big smile. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I told you there were more than 55 million reasons. There are 4 more million reasons why y'all ought to vote for me. Right over yonder on the other side of the Baptist parking lot, there's a $4 million building that the commissioner built. His long-term plan is to put his name on the side of it. Now, it's closed today, but that's nothing unusual. It's closed most of the time. He built a farmer's market for $4 million of your tax dollars, and they didn't take in enough money last year to pay the light bill. Now, it's open on Tuesdays and Thursdays and half a day on Saturday. And if you'll rush over there first thing in the morning, you might get a little old bag of peaches or tomatoes, and you might not. Now, that's not helping anybody but the contractors that built that building. And by the way, you'll see the names of the contractors that built that building on my opponent's campaign finance report. Follow the money. Now, I could talk all day about my opponent, but let me tell y'all a little bit about me. For 15 years, I worked on our family farm producing fresh vegetables that we sold and delivered to over 40 supermarkets in South Mississippi and in New Orleans. It was a full-time job, 6 days a week, sometimes 7. But we made a good living, and we marketed Mississippi products all around the southern part of the state and in the city of New Orleans. We didn't get any help from anybody in Jackson. And I'm running for this office because everywhere I go around Mississippi, there are entrepreneurs who are farmers, who can't make a living farming, and they're on a job somewhere that they hate because there's nobody to provide them some assistance. Now, you think about that $55 million and that $4 million that was wasted on nonsense projects. And you think about what we could do to really build our economy. We don't have to fly all the way to Tokyo to find an entrepreneur. There are people right here in Mississippi who can make jobs at home. but they're not going to make 500 or 1,000 or 1,500 jobs at the time. And that's why most of the politicians in Jackson don't give a damn about the common people that live out in rural Mississippi. I had a highly placed, appointed state official to tell me just 2 weeks ago that I asked him what could be done for the people who live in small communities like Raymond, Utica, Edwards. What could be done to help people who want to live locally and work locally? You know what he told me? He said, now you can't say this on the campaign trail, but my best advice to them is for them to move somewhere where they can get a job. There's 16 of us running statewide for statewide office. 8 Democrats and 8 Republicans. 6 of them are lawyers. 3 of them are businessmen. 2 accountants. 2 with a career in government. 1 banker and 1 veterinarian. And me. 7 of them are from Metro Jackson. 1 works in Tupelo, the other two work in Hattiesburg. 1 works in Laurel, 1 works in Vicksburg. This big boy over here worked in D.C. for about 25 years. 1 worked in Gulfport, and 1's last job was in Oxford before he came to Jackson. I'm from Ovette, Mississippi. And I moved to the big city of Utica, Mississippi, population 960. And I looked for 3 days for the switch to turn off that street light out there by the road because it was shining through my window. We need somebody, ladies and gentlemen, in office who cares about rural Mississippi in a real sense. Most of the people in this state don't live in metropolitan Jackson. They don't live in fast-growing Tupelo. They don't live close to where the new Toyota plant's going to be. They don't live down on the coast. They live 50 or 60 miles from the nearest good-paying job, and we've got to have an elected official who will work to change that. When a farmer plants 10,000 more bell pepper plants because he's got a contract for that, Haley Barber's not there to cut the ribbon. When the barber in Utica adds another chair so that his son can cut hair for the next 40 years, the governor's not there to cut the ribbon. There's nobody in Jackson who's returning these folks' calls. I won't wait for them to call. I'll reach out to the local, grassroots, rural people of this state, and just like I was a strong and forceful voice for the Democratic Party, I'll be a strong and forceful voice for the people who have built Mississippi, the country people. I'm proud to be from the country, but I tell people all the time I didn't fall off the turnip truck, I just kept on riding. And I don't have the best education in the world, but I read an article, a story some years ago about an ancient Greek named Diogenes. He went all over the world holding a lantern looking for an honest man. He went around the world asking the question, where is the honest man? Well, ladies and gentlemen, this right here is a meat hook. And I've asked 100 times all over the state of Mississippi. Y'all remember that beef plant I was telling you about? I went all over Mississippi asking the same question of my opponent, and he hadn't answered it yet. Well, see, there's a cow supposed to be hanging on this hook. A $1,200 or $1,500 cow. It's supposed to be full of T-bones and ribeyes, not potted meat. Not hamburger meat. We want the best cuts in Mississippi, not the worst. So if you happen to see my opponent, and you probably won't, I want you to remember that $55 million of your money he wasted. I want you to remember that expensive cattle carcass that ought to be hanging on this hook. I want you to remember those big juicy T-bones that somebody's producing somewhere else because we're not producing them in Mississippi. And I want you to look that old 64-year-old man right in the eye who needs to retire. He's got 32 years in public office. It's time for him to go home. You know, he had a midlife crisis here a couple of years ago and decided he's a Republican. He's so cotton-picking lazy, he waited till he was 62 years old to have a midlife crisis. Think about that, ladies and gentlemen. But if you see him, and like I say, you probably won't, I want you to think about this hook. And I want you to think about that $55 million he's wasted. And I want you to look him right square in the eye and ask him, hey, Lester, where's the beef? God bless y'all.